For this review, I have a number of family-themed movies that I'm going to talk about. The first, of course, being the Karate Kid and Karate Kid 2 Blu-ray releases from Sony. Now, of course, these go beyond being family films in that they are beloved classics from my childhood, but let's face it, they're rated PG, they were made in the 80s, they're fairly tame. I think you could show them to most kids today, and with the remake in theaters being aimed squarely at that tween set, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Karate Kid is good family fare. Now, I may not be the most objective reviewer in the world, but you can't hate The Karate Kid. I mean, it's a great movie. It made Ralph Macchio a household name, gave Pat Morita a career post-Happy Days, and for the most part, it's just a great movie. Now, I'm in maybe, I don't know if it's a rare camp or not, but I actually happen to think that The Karate Kid 2 is actually a worthy, if not better movie, successor to the original. I have a pretty soft spot for the second film. I don't know quite why. I think I was a little older when it came out, and I remember going to see it in the theater a couple of times opening weekend. I just really was immersed in that whole Karate Kid world when I was young, and so I really enjoyed the kind of going to Japan storyline, even though it pretty much is the exact same movie as the first one. But they're both really just fun, great films that I enjoyed revisiting. Now, I won't lie and say the films haven't aged some. The soundtracks in particular are extremely, extremely 80s themed, and you will hear some painful songs, and some of the acting in the films isn't great, but overall the movies really work, and they are carried on the shoulders of Pat Morita and Ralph Macchio, and but they're just a great flashback for me to a really fun time in my life. But on top of that, they're still solidly good films. Now, making their Blu-ray debut, of course, they are kind of what you expect from movies from the 80s. They have that sort of typical 20-year-old film transfer. And what I mean by that is you get, an upgraded picture, slightly better visual quality. Some of the scenes really shine and look particularly good. Some of them are marred by kind of some excessive grain or some darker overtones. The soundtracks are pretty good, a little front-centric. Most of the sounds come from your front speakers. You do get some occasional surround activity. But, you get a nice upgrade over DVD, but these aren't the movies you're going to pull out to show off your $1,000 speaker system with, if you happen to have one of those. Now, in terms of extra features, the first film really gets all of the love here, and the second film gets a little bit ignored comparatively, but neither one of them will let you down completely. On the first film and the second film, you get the Blue Pop feature, which is basically Sony's version of the kind of picture-in-picture video commentary type of thing that so many other studios are doing as well. It's not really video commentary so much as it is pop-up interviews and trivia bits and things like that, kind of a mix of stuff. That will kind of, guide you through the film and talk about karate and the making of the movie and some insights from one of the film's actors and stuff like that. And it's a fun way to watch the film if you've already seen them numerous times or if you're watching it a second time on Blu-ray. Now, on the first one, you also get a commentary track with the director, John Avildsen, writer Robert Mark Kamen, and Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. Clearly, this is an older track since Pat Morita is no longer with us, sadly. There's also a two-part making-of featurette called The Way of the Karate Kid, which runs about 45 minutes total, so that's pretty nice. A featurette on the karate called Beyond the Form. East Meets West, a composer's notebook, which looks at the score, and a Life of Bonsai featurette, which of course focuses on the bonsai trees. On the second film, you get another Blue Pop feature, and then you get a featurette called The Sequel, which is basically a short making of talking about the sequel nature of the film. So, in terms of extras, the first film really is the way to go, but they both come in a nice box set, and I really do recommend picking them both up because they're both terrific films that I enjoyed quite a bit. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a brand new family comedy starring Jackie Chan, who coincidentally stars in the remake of The Karate Kid, called The Spy Next Door, and it is unfortunately rather terrible. When the best actors in the cast are Billy Ray Cyrus and George Lopez, that's really not saying a whole lot, and this movie really was painful to watch from start to finish. Now, I like Jackie Chan a lot. I really enjoy his movies, even some of his newer stuff where he's not able to do as much of the crazy martial arts as he was when he was younger, but this movie really is embarrassing. The acting is terrible across the board. When I say that George Lopez and Billy Ray Cyrus are the best actors in the cast, that's not a compliment, believe me. The kids in the film are terrible. Even Jackie Chan looks embarrassed to be here. There's really nothing about it that I can recommend. The action scenes are cartoonish, but not in a good way. They lose all the flair and the style that Jackie Chan's martial arts usually brings to a movie. And frankly, the humor is really, really painful. And it's quite obvious that most of the time it's a stuntman doing the action scenes. So you can't even revel in the action kind of side of things. Maybe some families, maybe some younger kids who are old enough to handle an action film might like this film, but I have to think even most kids are going to find it pretty stupid, I have to be honest with you. In terms of extra features, you get a featurette called Jackie Chan, Stunt Master and Mentor. Would have been nice if he had actually done some of the stunts in the film. And a featurette called Adventures in Acting with the Kids from the Spy Next Door, which I find curious, since to call what these kids did acting is really kind of generous. And then finally you get a blooper reel. So there is also a DVD version of the film in this combo pack. So you get the DVD and the Blu-ray. Families, if you have family members who like this kind of thing, maybe it's worth a rental. Other than that, even for the diehard Jackie Chan fans, I would say to avoid this one. Next we have The Tooth Fairy, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and this is a family film that really isn't really for families. It's mostly just for little kids. It's a fairly kind of insipid, sort of silly movie that I give The Rock credit for being in, because it gives him a chance to kind of stretch his comedy wings and really play something broad and silly for the families. But I think parents will be mostly bored with this film, even if the kids might like it. Stephen Merchant does a great job as The Rock's sort of guardian fairy, if you will. And Julie Andrews shows up, and even Ashley Judd is there in a fairly thankless role. But overall, the movie just lacks any real comedy or humor or any kind of chops whatsoever. Kids will like it maybe, parents not so much. Good Blu-ray transfer. You get a nice, crisp, clear picture, bright colors. The surround soundtrack is very active, really plays up the comedy, and that's nice. And then in terms of extra features, you get mostly kid-centric stuff. A Tooth Fairy training center, sing-along karaoke, a gag reel, some deleted scenes. There is a behind-the-scenes feature. You also get an audio commentary with the director and a standard DVD copy as well as a digital copy of the movie. So there's plenty of bang for your buck. I just wish the movie itself was a little bit better, and, well, it's not. So not terrible. Again, just really broad, really played for the young laughs. Kids will like it. Parents, I'm sorry to say, you'll probably just have to sit through it and kind of suffer a little bit. From Fox, we have Flicka 2, a direct-to-video sequel to Flicka, which I didn't think was successful enough to warrant a sequel, but apparently it was. This time around, we have Patrick Warburton and Clint Black in the lead adult roles, and overall, this is actually not the worst movie in the world. Now, to be fair, I don't mean that to be insulting. It's just that family films, let's face it, can sometimes be painful to watch, and this one isn't quite that bad. It isn't great, but it isn't bad. It's actually a pretty decent family movie about a girl who learns more about herself and who she really is through, of course, her friendship with a horse. Actually reminds me kind of a bit of the Miley Cyrus movie, except that lead actress Tammin Sursok, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is much, much better actress than Miley Cyrus. Of course, that isn't saying much because Miley Cyrus is the worst actress in the world, but that's neither here nor there. So if you have young girls in your family and they like horses and you're looking for something with a wholesome message and some nice positive family values, then Flicka 2 really will do the trick. And it's not actually that bad of a film. So if you're going to sit through it with your kids as a parent, you won't at least be suffering the entire time. Finally, we have Ghost Rider Season 1 from Shout Factory, which I think was a PBS show, if I'm not mistaken, from the early 1990s. It was produced by Sesame Workshop, who, of course, makes Sesame Street. Now, I don't remember the show at all. I think it was obviously geared for people a little bit younger than I was in the early 90s, but it sort of, from the description, I thought maybe I would be getting something kind of like the Bloodhound Gang from back in my day, from the old 3-2-1 Contact show. And if you remember the Bloodhound Gang, then you're of my generation. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then, well, look it up on Google. And I suppose that Ghost Rider kind of falls into that mold, but it's kind of a painfully bad show to watch if you're an adult. If you have fond memories of this show in that kind of Degrassi Junior High sort of way, then maybe it'll be fun to go back and revisit it. But, boy, it's so painfully early 90s, I can't even tell you. I mean, the clothes and the hairstyles alone are terrible. But the production values on this show, it does look like it was shot for about 35 cents. And it just doesn't really help anything that you also have bad writing and bad acting on top of that. Now, I hate to be completely negative, but I trying to put myself into a 12-year-old mindset, maybe I could have enjoyed this show. But it's really, really hard watching it from a 2010 perspective to see anything other than just the full-on amounts of cheese that are present in this show. However, I will say it is a pretty nice DVD set in that you get about 14 hours worth of material. It's 8 cases, and each case runs 4 to 5 episodes long, and it's spread out over 5 discs. And you do get a nice little booklet in there that kind of goes through and tells you about some of the guest stars and gives you places to write down clues and stuff like that. But there aren't any actual extra features except for the Ghost Rider casebook, which is that booklet that comes with it. So that's kind of a letdown. But again, you do get a lot of episodes. So there's a lot of bang for your buck if you happen to be a fan of